So why has the backlash to Opera Australia's casting decision in West Side Story upset you?
I wouldn't say upset me. I was intrigued by the vehemence of the reaction, and I guess by the sort of absoluteness of the sort of responses, that it seemed to be, for many commentators, a clear wrong. And I thought you could say many things about it, but I think one thing that it is very hard, I think, to argue in substance that it's clearly wrong. And so I was, first of all, I mean, I guess it interested me for two reasons. One, I think it points out a problem we're seeing right across the spectrum in terms of public commentary on social media, that we tend to almost instantly end in sort of shouting matches from these sort of absolute positions. You're completely wrong, you're completely right, and so on and so forth. And that was also, when it more specifically around the nature of theatre and opera, just really misunderstands what theatre is, that it is about illusion and about make-believe and about pretense. And if we're going to say that people need to be the person they're pretending to be, as it were, then I think we have really sort of impoverished our notion of what theatre should be and what actors should be doing.
This really is a conversation that is dividing people in this time in Australia, because there have been accusations wider than just in theatre, across media and across film as well in Australia, about casting for roles based on ethnicity. Should Opera Australia have looked harder to cast an actress for Maria who had Puerto Rican descent? Presumably there aren't too many opera singers in Australia that fit that bill.
Probably not. I honestly don't know. I'd also find it hard to believe that if an Australian of a Latinx background auditioned for the role and was clearly suitable for the role, that there wouldn't be, if you like, an innate bias towards considering that person. I think we also should sort of separate the issue here. If the issue was that somebody of a particular ethnic group has got grounds to believe that Opera Australia or any other arts organisation was deliberately not considering them because of some kind of prejudicial notion of related to their ethnicity or their race or any other sort of cultural or physical attribute, then I think we've got a problem. But I don't think that's what's been argued or upset people here. It's almost that we prejudge the nature of what that role should be. And I think that I think is something quite different. So yes, I don't think anyone has argued, hang on, person X should have got this role. What we've been saying is that Opera Australia should never have conceived anyone else but the type of person that the role of, in this case, Maria, is playing in West Side Story, and I think that's actually a mistake.
Peter Tregear, you've written an opinion piece about this, which was published today, and in it you say, it is therefore not necessarily a racial insult to cast someone in a role who does not fit a stereotypical look. By the same token, nor is it an expression of oversensitive political correctness to do so. Both options should be open to a casting director. Do you think that sort of nuance is what's lost in the social media age?
Oh yes, absolutely. And I think that's what we need to return to. We just need to be, in one way, we have to be a little bit more sensitive and reasonable when we're having these kind of public discussions too, that there is always an alternative view. There are subtleties, and after all, frankly, I mean, theatre would be terribly boring if it was just one big cultural, racial, social cliche. What makes these works of art interesting is precisely the gaps, the areas of tension here. And of course, what I also wrote in that piece is something that I don't think anyone had really mentioned, that if we want to be crudely essentialist about this, the role of Maria is always already not a Latino or Latinx role. It was written by a New York American of Jewish background. The libretto was similarly, and indeed the choreography of the original production was so. So Maria's voice, if you like, is already immensely cross-culturally complex, and it would seem to me a great loss, I think, in our culture if we decided that we wanted to erase that complexity in the way that we cast for these shows.
And yet a Caucasian actress in the UK already pulled out of playing the role in a concert over there because she said it would deny Latinas the opportunity to sing this score, as well as deny the importance of seeing themselves represented on stage.
Yes, and look, there may be, of course, and I need to be, by the same token, sensitive that there may be particular context there that I'm not aware of. I mean, that show, I understand, at the Royal Albert Hall was being cast almost substantially from the US. So there may be specific circumstances that I'm not aware. Nevertheless, I do find the absoluteness of that, the moral clarity of that statement problematic. I don't think these things are that simple, or that we should have foreclosed the possibility of somebody who doesn't fit a certain kind of visual, social, ethnic cliche for performing that role. Or, and just as importantly, because ultimately we want to go to these works to identify with the struggle that's being portrayed there, the struggle in this case of Puerto Rican immigrants in New York, and identify the common humanity, so that in fact, if you like, if there's a political project here, is that we all become more sensitive to the problems and issues of other people. If we're going to sort of say that the only people who can fully understand or even begin to understand the problems of, say, immigrant experience in 1950s New York are people from that background, then we're almost saying, no bother, no point someone like me, you know, I fit all the sort of dodgy cliches, if you like, of white middle-aged male, that I shouldn't even begin to try and imagine what that experience is like. And that seems to me an impoverishment of what theatre can do for us.
Do you think that argument is going to be more difficult to mount into the future, given actresses like Scarlett Johansson have pulled out of roles over a social media backlash, or a backlash from senior members of the LGBT community because she was cast to play a transgender character?
Look, at the moment, it clearly is going to be difficult. I hope in some ways that this is perhaps, if you like, a kind of a political growing pains that we're going through. I'm also would be silly to sort of me or anyone in my position to claim that there haven't been internal and inherent biases in the way that, for instance, Hollywood casting has worked. But I think we don't want to end up in a position where we're replacing one set of sort of foreclosed, you know, imaginative foreclosure in terms of people we think are able to identify with certain kinds of social and cultural struggles, with another set of foreclosures, and saying that the only people that, you know, that can understand condition X are people with that condition. And I think we all need to be a little bit more generous too about each other. That, you know, most of our own lives are not that clear cut. Our own experiences, our own sexuality, our own understanding of our own racial backgrounds and so on, it's becoming more and more complicated as the world becomes more interconnected. So I think in some ways we ought to be blurring the boundaries consciously now.
Such an interesting topic. Peter Tregear, thank you for speaking to us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.